December 16th, 1944, the Ardennes Forest, Belgium. General Benjamin Harrigan stands in the pre-dawn darkness, breath clouding in the frozen air. At 58 years old, he's never lost a battle. Not in North Africa, where Rommel's Afrika Korps learned to fear American steel. Not in Sicily, where his tanks carved through Italian defenses like a hot knife through butter. Not at Normandy, where he led the breakout from Omaha Beach while other divisions were still counting their dead. 27 months of unbroken victory, 63 engagements, 0 defeats. The men call him Bull, not because he charges blindly, but because once he commits to an attack, nothing stops him, nothing bends him, nothing breaks his momentum. He believes in 3 things: American industrial might, overwhelming firepower, and the mathematics of production. Build more tanks than the enemy can destroy, fire more shells than they can dodge, put more men on the line than they can kill. Simple. Effective, undefeated. In 4 hours, everything he knows about warfare will become obsolete. But right now, in this moment before the world changes, Bull Harrigan is confident. His 2nd Armored Division, 12,000 men strong, sits poised to punch through the German lines and drive straight to the Rhine. Intelligence reports say the Germans are finished, broken, running on fumes and desperation. Christmas in Germany, the men are saying, victory by New Year's. Harrigan checks his watch, 0430 hours. Behind him, the forest road rumbles with the sound of American power. Sherman tanks, hundreds of them, engines idling in the cold, half-tracks filled with infantry, supply trucks stretching back for miles. The logistical miracle that is the United States Army in full operational strength. He turns to his intelligence officer, Captain Robert Fitzgerald, former MIT engineer, recruited for his mind rather than his muscle. 42 years old, wire-rimmed glasses already fogging in the December cold. Weather report, Bob? Fog until 0900, General. Cloud ceiling at 300 feet. Air support will be grounded. Harrigan nods. He doesn't like advancing without air cover, but the mathematics work in his favor. His division has 214 tanks. The Germans, according to intelligence, have perhaps 30 operational panzers in this sector. 7-1 advantage. Even if the Luftwaffe shows up, which they won't because they're out of fuel and pilots, the numbers guarantee victory. This is how wars are won, not with heroics or brilliant tactics, but with production capacity, with assembly lines that run 24 hours a day, with a nation that can build more tanks in a month than Germany can build in a year. Order the advance, Harrigan says. 1st Battalion takes point. Keep the column tight. I want to be across the Somme River by 1400 hours. The radio crackles. Orders flow down the chain of command. Engines roar louder. Steel grinds against steel as tank commanders button up their hatches. Harrigan climbs into his command half-track. Around him, the forest is still dark, trees skeletal against the pre-dawn sky. Somewhere ahead, maybe 5 miles, the German lines wait, or what's left of them, broken units, old men and boys pressed into service, the dregs of a defeated army making its last stand before inevitable surrender. The column begins to move. Snow crunches under tank treads. The forest swallows them, pine branches heavy with ice reaching over the narrow road like the fingers of dead men. Visibility drops to 30 yards, then 20. The fog is thick, almost solid, turning the world into a gray void where sound travels strangely and distance becomes meaningless. Harrigan doesn't like it. Combat is about seeing the enemy before they see you, about bringing superior firepower to bear. But the fog is equal opportunity blindness. It makes his numerical advantage irrelevant if he can't see far enough to use it. Still, the math holds. 7-1. Even in a knife fight, you want to be the one with 7 knives. The column advances, slow, careful. 1st Battalion is a mile ahead now, probing forward. Radio reports come back every 10 minutes, all clear, no contact. The forest is empty. Too empty, Harrigan thinks. But he pushes the thought aside. This is what victory looks like. The enemy has already retreated. His division is advancing into vacuum, not resistance. 0645 hours. The sun should be rising, but the fog turns everything into twilight. Harrigan's half-track rolls forward at walking pace, following the tank tracks carved into the snow ahead. Then the radio explodes with noise. "Contact! Contact! We have—" The voice cuts off. Not gradually, not with static. It just ends, like someone flipped a switch. Harrigan grabs the handset. "First Battalion, report. Lieutenant O'Brien, report your status." Silence. Then, through the fog in the distance, a sound. Deep, thunderous. Not like American tank guns, which bark and crack. This is something else. A bass note that carries weight, that reverberates in the chest. One shot. 2, 3, 4, each one followed by a sound Harrigan knows too well. The shriek of metal tearing, the wet crump of ammunition cooking off, the screams, always the screams. "All units, combat spread! Get off the road!" But the forest is too dense. The road is the only path wide enough for tanks. His beautiful, unstoppable column is a traffic jam on a single-lane road with nowhere to go but forward or back. Another thunderous boom. Closer now. And Harrigan realizes something that makes his blood run cold. He's not hearing American tanks firing back. He's only hearing the enemy. "First Battalion, status report. Someone talk to me." The radio hisses, then a voice, young, cracking with terror. "They're gone, sir. Oh God, they're all gone. The lead company the tanks are burning. All of them. We can't even see what's shooting at us. It's in the fog. It's—" Another boom. The radio goes dead. Harrigan's command half-track skids to a stop. Around him, men are jumping out, taking cover behind trees, weapons pointing into the gray void. But there's nothing to shoot at. Just fog and the smell of burning metal drifting back from somewhere ahead. He grabs Fitzgerald's arm. "Get forward, take a squad, find out what the hell is happening." Fitzgerald's face is pale, but he nods and disappears into the fog with 5 infantry soldiers. Minutes crawl past. Harrigan stands there, a general with 12,000 men and 200 tanks, and for the first time since Normandy, he has absolutely no idea what's happening on his own battlefield. The firing has stopped. The fog carries sounds strangely. He can hear burning, metal pinging as it cools, someone crying for a medic. Then Fitzgerald's voice on the radio, barely a whisper. "General, you need to see this." Harrigan moves forward on foot. His aide tries to stop him. Generals don't walk into contact zones. But Bull Harrigan didn't become a general by sitting in the rear while his men died in the front. He walks through the fog, past his own tanks, crews standing outside, uncertain whether to advance or retreat, past infantry huddled in foxholes they've scraped in the frozen ground. The smell of burnt propellant gets stronger. Burnt rubber, burnt flesh. The fog parts slightly, and Harrigan sees 1st Battalion, or what's left of it. 14 Sherman tanks, not destroyed in the Hollywood sense, not dramatically exploded, just dead. Hulls punctured. Some of them have holes punched clean through both sides like someone took a drill the size of a fist and bored through the armor. Turrets blown off, hatches open with charred shapes visible inside that used to be men. 14 tanks, gone in less than 4 minutes. Fitzgerald is kneeling next to one of the Shermans, measuring something with a piece of string. He looks up when Harrigan approaches. His hands are shaking. "General, the penetration marks, the angle of impact. Whatever hit these tanks, it wasn't firing from where our intelligence said the German lines were." "Where were they firing from?" 2,000 yards, maybe more. Harrigan stares at him. "That's impossible. German 88s can't penetrate Sherman armor at 2,000 yards. "These aren't 88mm holes, sir." Fitzgerald points to the entry wound in the nearest Sherman's hull. Harrigan has seen thousands of tank kills. He knows what an 88 does. This is different. Bigger, cleaner. Like the shell didn't just penetrate the armor, it punched through it with energy to spare. "I found this embedded in a tree." Fitzgerald holds up a piece of metal. It's heavy, even for its size. Carefully machined. part of a shell casing. "That's not German standard issue," Harrigan says. "No, sir, it's not." A young lieutenant approaches, O'Brien, 28 years old, tank commander, one of the survivors. His face is black with soot, and his eyes have that 1,000-yard stare that comes from watching your friends die. "Sir, I saw it, just for a second when the fog cleared." "Saw what, Lieutenant?" "The tank that killed us." O'Brien's voice is flat. "Empty." "It was huge, sir. Bigger than anything I've ever seen." The gun barrel looked like a telephone pole. "And our 75mm rounds, we hit it 3 times. Dead center. We saw the sparks." "And?" "And nothing, sir. The rounds just bounced off, like we were throwing rocks at a battleship." Harrigan feels something he hasn't felt since his first combat action in North Africa. A cold, creeping sensation in his gut that has nothing to do with the December weather. Fear. "Pull back," he orders. 200 yards. Get the tanks off this road. We need to reassess." As the division reorganizes, Harrigan stands in the command post tent, staring at a map that suddenly seems worthless. All his intelligence, all his planning, based on the assumption that he knew what he was fighting. Colonel James McAllister, his ordnance expert, is examining the shell fragment. 55 years old, career artillery officer, seen every German weapon from Poland to France. "It's an 88mm gun," McAllister says, "but not the version we know. This is heavier, different rifling, longer barrel, I'd guess, probably 45, maybe 50 calibers long." Harrigan does the math in his head. A longer barrel means higher muzzle velocity. Higher velocity means more penetration, more range. Can our Shermans kill it? McAllister is quiet for a long moment. "Sir, if Lieutenant O'Brien is right about the size, if this is what I think it is, we'd need to hit it from the side or rear, close range, very close. And even then, I'm not sure." "You're telling me we have a 7-to-1 numerical advantage and we can't win?" "I'm telling you that this isn't a battle of numbers anymore, General. One of their tanks can kill 5, maybe 7 of ours before we can get close enough to hurt it. The mathematics you're used to, they don't apply." The words hang in the frozen air of the tent. 27 months of victory, built on the foundation of American industrial supremacy, suddenly rendered meaningless by a single piece of German engineering. But Harrigan isn't finished, not by a long shot. He's Bull Harrigan, and bulls don't retreat. "We have air support coming when this fog clears. We have artillery. We have tank destroyers with 90mm guns being shipped from England right now, and we have more men and more tanks than the Germans have ammunition." He taps the map. "We're going to learn what we're facing. We're going to adapt, and we're going to win, because that's what Americans do." It sounds confident. It sounds like leadership. But late that night, alone in his tent, Harrigan can't sleep. He keeps seeing those 14 Shermans, keeps doing the mathematics. If one German tank can kill 7 American tanks, and the Germans have more than one of these monsters, then his numerical advantage isn't 7-to-1. It's worse than even. And for the first time in his career, General Benjamin Harrigan realizes that he might be fighting a war he doesn't know how to win. The next 48 hours are a master class in humiliation. December 17th. Harrigan's division attempts a flanking maneuver, standard tactics, textbook execution. They run into a German infantry position armed with something new, tube-shaped weapons, shoulder-fired, that launch rocket-propelled grenades. Panzerschreck, the Germans call it. Tank terror. Lieutenant O'Brien's after-action report is clinical in its horror. The weapon weighs maybe 20 pounds. One man can carry it. Range about 100 yards. But, sir, I watched it vaporize a Sherman. Didn't penetrate the armor, didn't punch through. The whole tank just came apart, like the explosive force was inside the armor. Fitzgerald explains it later. Shaped charge technology. The explosive doesn't rely on kinetic energy. It focuses the blast into a jet of superheated metal that burns through armor like a blowtorch through butter. Chemistry defeating physics. Harrigan loses 8 tanks to infantry weapons that day. Infantry. Men on foot with portable rocket launchers killing 30-ton tanks. The mathematics are breaking down further. December 18th, the fog finally clears. Harrigan orders air support. P-51 Mustangs, the best fighter bomber in the American arsenal. They'll strafe the German positions, take out those mystery tanks, restore the balance. The Mustangs never reach the target. Harrigan watches from a ridge as German fighters appear. But these aren't the propeller-driven Messerschmitts he's used to. These are something new, sleek, fast. No propellers at all. Jet engines. The German Me-262S rip through the American fighter formation like wolves through sheep. The Mustangs can do 440 miles per hour flat out. The jets are doing 540. The math isn't even close. 3 Mustangs go down in flames. The rest break off and retreat. Air superiority, the foundation of American tactical doctrine, gone in 90 seconds. That night, Fitzgerald briefs Harrigan on what they've learned. "Sir, we're facing 3 technological leaps we didn't know existed. The Tiger II tank, armed with an 88mm KWK-43 gun, 7 inches of frontal armor. Our 75mm guns can't penetrate it except at point-blank range from the sides or rear. Second, the Panzerschreck and Panzerfaust, portable, infantry-operated anti-tank weapons using shaped charge warheads, effective range 100 to 150 yards. Every German infantryman is now a tank killer. Third, the Me-262 jet fighter, 540 miles per hour, armed with 4 30mm cannons. We have nothing that can catch it, nothing that can outrun it." Fitzgerald removes his glasses, cleans them. A nervous habit. "General, we've been fighting this war like it's 1942. They've been preparing for 1945. Harrigan stares at the map. His division has lost 37 tanks in 3 days. Not to superior numbers, to superior technology. Every assumption he made about this campaign is wrong. Every plan is obsolete." McAllister speaks up. "Sir, I recommend we pull back to defensive positions, wait for reinforcements, wait for our own technology to catch up. We've never retreated. General, we've never faced this before." The tent goes quiet. Outside, Harrigan can hear the sounds of his division, men talking in low voices, the clank of tank treads, the hum of generators. 12,000 soldiers who believe in him, who trust that Bull Harrigan knows how to win, but he doesn't, not this time. Not with the weapons he has and the enemy he's facing. "How many Tiger IIs do we think they have?" Harrigan asks. "Intelligence estimates between 60 and 80 in the entire Ardennes sector." "And how many Shermans do we have in theater?" "Approximately 4,000. Harrigan does the math one more time. If each Tiger can kill 7 Shermans before being destroyed, that's 480 American tanks gone. But the Allies can replace those losses in a month. The Germans can't replace anything. They're running on empty, fighting with wonder weapons they can barely produce. "We still win," Harrigan says. "Not today, not tomorrow, but we win because we have more. We always have more." But even as he says it, he knows something has changed. The confidence is gone, the certainty. For the first time in his career, victory isn't about courage or tactics. It's about simple, brutal arithmetic. Trading American lives and American steel for German engineering until the German engineering runs out. It's a mathematics of blood, and it makes him sick. December 19th. Intelligence brings Harrigan a gift. A captured German soldier, not just any soldier, an engineer. Klaus Weber, 45 years old, worked in a tank factory before being drafted. Wounded in the leg during a firefight, too injured to escape when his unit retreated. Fitzgerald conducts the interrogation in a farmhouse basement. Harrigan watches through a doorway. Weber sits on a wooden chair, leg bandaged, face gray with pain and exhaustion. "Why are your tanks so much better than ours?" Fitzgerald asks in fluent German. Weber laughs. It's a bitter sound. "Better? Your Sherman is a fine tank. Reliable. Easy to build. You make them like Ford makes automobiles. 50,000 Shermans, yes? We have 1,500 Tigers. You should win easily. But we're not winning. No. Weber lights a cigarette with shaking hands. You Americans, you think war is about production. Build more, build faster, overwhelm with quantity. It worked in 1943. It worked in 1944. But we Germans, we learned something. What's that? That quantity is worthless if quality is high enough. Weber takes a long drag. In tank combat, the side that sees first, shoots first, penetrates first, wins. Your Sherman has a 75mm gun with a muzzle velocity of 2,000 feet per second. Effective range against armor, maybe 1,000 yards. Our Tiger II has an 88mm KWK-43 with a muzzle velocity of 3,000 feet per second. Effective range, 3,000 yards. Fitzgerald leans forward. You're saying you can kill us before we can even shoot at you. Not me, I'm just an engineer. But yes, that's the mathematics. A Tiger can kill a Sherman from 2,000 yards away. The Sherman can't hurt a Tiger from 2,000 yards. So the Tiger kills 5, 6, 7 Shermans before any of them get close enough to fire back. Then we flank you. Yes, your doctrine says to flank. Good doctrine. But flanking takes time, takes coordination. And our infantry has Panzerfausts, disposable anti-tank rockets. We give them to boys, to old men. Everyone is a tank killer now. Weber stubs out his cigarette. You Americans won the production war in 1942. You built more tanks, more planes, more ships than we could dream of. So we stopped trying to compete with quantity. We focused on quality, on technology. One Tiger is worth 7 Shermans. One ME-262 is worth 5 Mustangs. We changed the mathematics. Harrigan steps into the room. Weber looks up, recognizes the stars on Harrigan's helmet. You're the general, the one they call Bull. That's right. You want to know if you can win. Can I? Weber is quiet for a long moment. Yes, you'll win, because we're out of fuel, out of ammunition, out of time. Our wonder weapons are wonderful, but we can't build enough of them. You'll win by drowning us in steel and blood. But General, here's the question you should be asking. What happens in the next war? What do you mean? We Germans, we lost the production race. So we innovated. We built jets, rockets, guided missiles, shape-charge warheads, things that make quantity irrelevant. Do you think we're the only ones who can innovate? What happens when you face an enemy who has both production and innovation? The words land like artillery shells. Harrigan has spent his career believing in American industrial supremacy, believing that the nation that can build the most will always win. But Weber is showing him a future where that's not enough, where technological innovation can neutralize numerical advantage, where being first to build 1,000,000 tanks means nothing if the enemy builds tanks that kill yours 7-1. You're telling me that everything I know about warfare is obsolete. Weber meets his eyes. I'm telling you that warfare is changing. The side that learns fastest wins, not the side that builds the most. That night, Harrigan sits alone in his command tent, staring at a captured Panzerfaust. It's surprisingly simple. A tube, a trigger, a shape-charge warhead. Probably costs $50 to manufacture. No complex machinery, no skilled labor required. And it can kill a Sherman tank that cost $50,000 to build. $50 versus $50,000. The mathematics make him want to weep. But something else is happening in his mind. Something dangerous. An idea forming. What if Weber is right? What if the future of warfare isn't about production, but about innovation? What if the way to beat an enemy with better technology isn't to build more worse technology? What if it's to steal their technology and make it your own? He thinks briefly about ancient empires that learned from their enemies. Warriors who encountered superior weapons and captured the knowledge instead of retreating from it. The pattern has repeated throughout history. He looks at the Panzerfaust again, at the notes Fitzgerald compiled on the Tiger II's armor composition, at the blurry photograph of an ME-262 taken by a reconnaissance pilot right before he was shot down. American industrial might built this army, built the tanks, the planes, the ships that are grinding Germany into dust through sheer weight of production. But tomorrow's war won't be won the same way. Tomorrow's war will be won by whoever learns fastest, whoever adapts quickest, whoever has the humility to learn from their enemies instead of just killing them. Harrigan picks up his field telephone. "Get me Fitzgerald and McAllister. I don't care what time it is." They arrive within minutes. Both look exhausted, both expecting orders to retreat, to consolidate, to play it safe. Instead, Harrigan says, "I want every piece of German technology we can get our hands on. Every captured weapon, every destroyed tank, every downed plane. I want engineers examining them. I want reports. I want to know how they work, why they work, and how we can counter them or copy them." McAllister blinks. "Sir, that will take months, maybe years. Then we better start now, because Weber is right. This war, we'll win it with production. We'll bury the Germans in Shermans and Mustangs until they run out of ammunition for their Tigers and their jets." Harrigan leans forward. "But the next war, the one against whoever comes after, we'll need more than just numbers. We'll need knowledge, understanding, the ability to match innovation with innovation." Fitzgerald's eyes widen behind his glasses. "You're talking about systematic technology capture. I'm talking about survival, about learning. The Germans are teaching us a lesson right now. They're showing us that the future belongs to those who innovate, not just those who produce. And we're going to be good students. We're going to finish this war the American way, with overwhelming force, with more tanks and more men than the Germans can handle. But we're going to start preparing for the next war right now, by learning everything we can from the weapons that are killing us." Harrigan walks to the tent entrance, looks out at his division. 12,000 men, 200 tanks. The most powerful military force America has ever fielded in Europe. And 3 days ago, he thought it was invincible. Now he knows better. Invincibility is a myth. The unbeatable get beaten. The unstoppable gets stopped. The only constant in warfare is change. And the only way to survive change is to embrace it, to learn from it, even when it's trying to kill you, especially when it's trying to kill you. "Gentlemen," Harrigan says, turning back to his officers, "Bull Harrigan just got his education in modern warfare. It won't happen twice. Not because I'm going to build more Shermans, but because I'm going to learn everything those Tigers and those jets and those Panzerfausts can teach me. And then I'm going to make sure America never faces this kind of surprise again." Outside, the December night is cold and clear. The fog has lifted. Stars are visible for the first time in days. Somewhere in the darkness, German Tiger tanks sit in defensive positions, their massive guns pointing toward American lines. General Benjamin Harrigan stands in the doorway of his tent, holding a captured Panzerfaust, and for the first time since Normandy, he feels something strange. Not confidence, not certainty, but determination. The determination to learn, to adapt, to become the student instead of pretending to be the master. Because in the mathematics of war, the side that learns fastest doesn't just survive, it dominates. January 3rd, 1945, near Bastogne, Belgium. 3 weeks have passed since Bull Harrigan watched his tanks burn in the Ardennes fog. 3 weeks of bloody, grinding combat. The German offensive has stalled, but not because American tactics improved. It stalled because the Germans ran out of fuel. Their magnificent Tiger tanks, their terrifying jets, all worthless when the supply lines collapse. Harrigan's division has lost 83 tanks, but the Germans lost 37. By the mathematics of attrition, America is winning. But Harrigan isn't satisfied with winning by bleeding. He wants to win by understanding. The breakthrough comes on a frozen morning when fog rolls back across the Belgian countryside. Fitzgerald bursts into the command tent, breath steaming, eyes bright. "General, we got one." Harrigan looks up from his maps. "Got what?" "A Tiger II, intact, crew alive." For a moment, Harrigan doesn't move. Then he's on his feet, grabbing his coat, shouting for McAllister. They drive through the shattered landscape in a jeep, past burned-out Shermans being salvaged for parts, past graves marked with helmets and rifles, past exhausted infantry huddled around fires. The Tiger II sits in a field like a monument to German engineering, 68 tons. The turret alone weighs more than some American tanks. The gun barrel stretches forward, impossibly long. An American M36 tank destroyer sits 50 yards away, its 90mm gun trained on the Tiger's flank. That's why the crew surrendered. The M36, one of the new tank destroyers rushed from England, managed a flanking shot, penetrated the side armor, didn't destroy the tank but convinced the crew that staying inside meant dying. The German tank commander stands under guard, tall, lean, maybe 52 years old, uniform immaculate despite everything, face scarred, eyes that have seen too much. His name is Gunther Schmidt, Knight's Cross recipient, veteran of the Eastern Front. Commanded Tigers since Kursk. Harrigan approaches. Schmidt salutes, professionally, one soldier to another. "I am General Harrigan, 2nd Armored Division." Obersturmführer Schmidt. His English is accented but clear. "I know who you are, General. Your reputation precedes you." "My reputation just got 83 of my tanks destroyed." "My apologies. War is not personal, yes? But your tank destroyer commander," Schmidt nods toward the M36. "Very good. He waited until we engaged your Shermans, then flanked wide, used terrain, took his shot from ideal range. Professional work." Harrigan gestures to the Tiger. "I want to understand this machine. Are you asking me to betray my country? Your country lost this war 6 months ago. The killing continues because politicians in Berlin refuse reality. If teaching me about your tank helps end this faster, that's not betrayal, that's mercy." Schmidt is quiet for a long moment. Then he nods toward the Tiger. "The war is lost. You're right about that. Come, I'll show you why your Shermans die so easily." They spend the next 4 hours examining the Tiger. Schmidt explains everything. The optics that let his gunner acquire targets at 3,000 meters. The armor, face-hardened steel that's engineered to defeat kinetic penetrators. The transmission that's brilliant in design, but breaks constantly. The interleaved road wheels that pack with mud. He explains the gun. The 88mm KWK-43, 71 calibers long, muzzle velocity over 3,000 feet per second, can defeat 7 inches of armor at 2,000 yards. "Your Sherman," Schmidt says, running his hand along the Tiger's gun barrel, "must close to 500 meters to penetrate my frontal armor. At that range, I kill 7, maybe 8 Shermans before you close the distance." McAllister is taking notes frantically. "How many rounds do you carry?" 84. "Jesus." Harrigan walks around the Tiger studying every detail. This is what evolution looks like. The Sherman seemed invincible in 1942. 3 years later, it's prey. "Why didn't we see this coming?" Harrigan asks. Schmidt lights a cigarette. "You did? Your intelligence knew about Tigers, but you assumed we couldn't build many. You were correct. We produce maybe 50 per month. You produce 500 Shermans monthly. So numerical advantage still favors us. In production, yes, but not in combat effectiveness. We're not fighting a production war anymore, General. We're fighting an engineering war." Schmidt gestures to his crew. 4 young men, exhausted, standing under guard. "These boys have 3 weeks of training. 3 weeks. We're desperate for crews, but we gave them this machine, and they destroyed 4 Shermans before your excellent tank destroyer stopped us." "You're saying technology multiplies the effectiveness of limited training?" "Precisely. Your doctrine relies on numerical superiority. Good doctrine when the equipment is comparable. But when 1 Tiger equals 7 Shermans, your mathematics fail." He takes a long drag. "Here's what your commanders missed, General. You won the First World War with production. You're winning this war the same way. More men, more materiel, more everything. The mathematics of overwhelming force. But what happens when your enemy innovates faster, when they change the equation so that your more becomes irrelevant?" The question echoes in the frozen air. Harrigan knows the answer. It's the nightmare scenario, an enemy with both the will to innovate and the capacity to produce. "I need you to teach me," Harrigan says. "I'm a prisoner. I owe you nothing." The war is over. More Germans and Americans will die, but the outcome is decided. "If you teach me, if you help me understand German engineering philosophy, maybe I can help end this faster." And after? Harrigan makes a decision that will define his legacy. After, you work for me, for America. You teach our engineers what you know, how to think about design, about innovation, about making quality count. Schmidt stares. "You want me to work for the enemy? I want the killing to stop. I want this to be the last war where American boys die because their equipment is inferior, and I think you want the same thing." Schmidt is quiet for a very long time. Finally, "I'll teach you, not for America, not for Germany, for the men dying in inadequate machines on both sides. If teaching you gives them better equipment, I can live with that." Over the next 2 weeks, Schmidt becomes Harrigan's most valuable asset. He doesn't just explain the Tiger. He explains the philosophy behind German engineering. "Your American approach," Schmidt says during one session, "is to design for mass production, reliability over performance. This works when you control the factories, but it creates complacency." Complacency? You stop pushing boundaries. Why improve the Sherman when you can build more Shermans? Why develop new tactics when overwhelming force succeeds? Schmidt draws diagrams in the dirt. "We Germans lost the production race in 1942. Accepted it. So we focused on quality, better optics, longer guns, heavier armor, each innovation born from desperation." He looks at Harrigan. "You've never been desperate, not truly. Your homeland is safe, your factories untouched, your mathematics work. But what happens when that changes, when desperation forces you to innovate? Will you know how? Or will you keep building Shermans?" The words cut deep. Because Schmidt is right. American doctrine assumes abundance, unlimited industrial capacity, the ability to replace losses faster than the enemy can inflict them. But that assumption has a fatal flaw. It only works if the enemy plays by the same rules. The captured Tiger becomes a traveling classroom. Harrigan brings in crews from neighboring divisions, shows them what they're facing, helps them understand that courage isn't enough when physics is against you. He orders tactical changes, no more frontal assaults on Tigers, flanking maneuvers only. Terrain exploitation. Accept that killing one Tiger requires multiple Shermans and plan accordingly. The mathematics are harsh but honest, and slowly, casualties decrease. February 12, 1945. The division participates in the drive toward the Rhine. This time, they're ready. They understand German capabilities. They've adapted. Near Cologne, they encounter 4 Tiger IIs in defensive positions. The old Harrigan would have charged directly, relying on numbers. The new Harrigan uses infantry scouts, artillery suppression, then commits M26 Pershing tanks, the new American heavy tanks with 90mm guns. Only 20 Pershings available, but they can hurt Tigers frontally. While Pershings engage at long range, Shermans flank wide through ruins, patient, methodical. 4 hours later, all 4 Tigers are destroyed. American losses, 2 Pershings, 5 Shermans, 18 men, German losses, 4 Tigers, 32 men. By the old mathematics, barely a victory. By the new mathematics, revolutionary. For the first time, Harrigan's division defeated superior technology through adapted tactics and better equipment deployment. That night, Fitzgerald finds Harrigan staring at a destroyed Tiger. "We did it, General. We matched them." "No, Bob, we adapted enough to survive. That's different from innovating." Harrigan climbs onto the Tiger's hull. "There's a difference between learning to counter what exists and creating something new." Is adaptation enough? For this war, yes, the Germans are finished. We'll grind them down through attrition, but for the next war, we need more than adaptation. We need to become innovators ourselves. How? We capture their innovators. Fitzgerald blinks. Sir? The scientists who designed these tanks, these jets, these weapons, most aren't fanatics. They're engineers. They worked for Hitler because he funded them. What if we offer them something better? The idea crystallizes. Intelligence reports German scientists fleeing westward. They fear Soviet occupation. They know Stalin's reputation. They'd rather surrender to Americans. Fitzgerald's eyes widen. You want to recruit them. I want to ensure the next generation of American weapons isn't obsolete on delivery, and that means learning from the best minds in German engineering. Sir, these people built weapons that killed Americans. And American scientists built weapons that killed Germans. That's the nature of war, but the war's ending. What matters now is who learns the lessons, who takes the knowledge, and builds the future. Harrigan climbs down. History is full of examples. Empires that learned from their enemies became dominant. Those that didn't became footnotes. We're going to learn, even if it means working with people we'd rather not. March 15, 1945. The opportunity arrives faster than expected. Intelligence reports German rocket scientists evacuating from Peenemünde. The V-2 program. Hundreds of researchers fleeing the Soviet advance. Heading south toward Bavaria, American-occupied territory. Harrigan acts without authorization, detaches a battalion. Orders, secure the scientists, all of them. April 2, 1945. The battalion reaches Nordhausen, an underground factory carved into mountains, where V-2 rockets were manufactured, using slave labor. Thousands work to death building missiles. The factory is silent, empty. The scientists fled days earlier. Captain O'Brien, promoted after his actions in the Ardennes, leads the pursuit. They find the scientists 30 miles away. Organized, waiting. One man in charge, Werner von Braun, 33 years old, arm in a cast from a recent accident. Fluent English, brilliant, and very eager to negotiate. Harrigan arrives that evening. Von Braun stands as he enters. General Harrigan, your reputation precedes you. Dr. von Braun, yours as well. They study each other, two men from opposite sides, meeting in Germany's ruins. I built the V-2, von Braun says directly. It killed British civilians. I won't apologize for my work, only for how it was used. Noted. But, General, the V-2 isn't just a weapon. It's humanity's first vehicle to reach space, the first step toward the stars. Harrigan sits. What do you want, Doctor? To build rockets that explore instead of destroy, to send humans to the moon, to Mars, beyond. In exchange, I give you everything, every document, every scientist in my program, every innovation from the V-2, guidance systems, propulsion, aerodynamics, everything. Von Braun leans forward. The Soviets are 2 weeks behind you. When they arrive, they'll take all of this. They'll take my team. They'll take my knowledge. And they'll use it to threaten America. But if you take us, America becomes the dominant rocket power. You win the next conflict before it begins. Harrigan looks at this young man, at the brilliance in his eyes, at the ambition, at the blood on his hands, because the V-2 program used concentration camp labor. 20,000 prisoners died building rockets. Von Braun knows this, must know this, and he's bargaining as if those deaths are negotiable. McAllister pulls Harrigan aside. Sir, this man oversaw atrocities. We should arrest him. And if we don't take him, the Soviets will. Then Soviet rockets threaten American cities. That doesn't make it right. No, it makes it necessary. Harrigan looks at McAllister. War doesn't offer good choices. Only terrible choices and worse choices. We choose the terrible one because the worse one is unacceptable. Harrigan returns to von Braun. Here's the deal. You and your team come to America. You work for the U.S. Army. You teach us everything about rocketry. But understand this clearly. You're not a hero. You're a resource. You built weapons with slave labor. That doesn't vanish because you're useful to us. You'll work under constant supervision. You'll never have independent authority, and if you become a liability, I'll personally ensure you face justice. Do we understand each other? Von Braun extends his hand. Perfectly, General. They shake. With that handshake, the foundation of America's space program is born. Over 3 weeks, Harrigan's battalion evacuates 125 German rocket scientists, 14 tons of documents, components from Nordhausen dismantled and shipped. The Soviets arrive in early May, find the factory stripped, the scientists gone, the knowledge removed. Stalin is furious, but the deed is done. May 8, 1945. Victory in Europe Day. Harrigan stands outside his command tent, watching crates being loaded onto trucks. German technology, captured weapons, documents, blueprints. The sum total of Germany's engineering advantage, bound for America. Fitzgerald approaches. We won, General. We survived. There's a difference. The war's over. This war. But what about the next one? Harrigan lights a cigarette. We won through attrition. Through having more men, more tanks, more everything. We buried Germany in steel. But we didn't out-innovate them. Those Tigers? Still better than our Shermans? Those jets? Still faster than our fighters? Those rockets? We have nothing comparable. We won because Germany exhausted itself, not because we surpassed them. Fitzgerald removes his glasses. But now we have their scientists. Yes, now we have a chance to learn, to close the innovation gap, to ensure the next generation of American weapons isn't obsolete. But having the scientists isn't enough. We need to use them, learn from them, transfer that knowledge to American engineers. Otherwise, we're just importing German innovation instead of creating American innovation. He takes a long drag. The real test isn't whether we captured von Braun. It's whether we learn fast enough to make his knowledge ours. Fitzgerald is quiet. Then, you've changed since the Ardennes. Watching your men die because you're unprepared, that changes you. Harrigan drops the cigarette. I thought I knew warfare, thought American production was invincible. Then I met a tiger and learned I knew nothing. Best education I ever received. He looks at the crates, at the captured technology that will reshape American military thinking. The Germans taught me that quality can defeat quantity, that innovation multiplies effectiveness, that one brilliant mind is worth 1,000 assembly lines. But you know what the most important lesson was? What's that? Humility. The willingness to admit you don't know everything. The courage to learn from people trying to kill you. That's what separates survivors from casualties in times of change. A jeep arrives, a lieutenant with orders from headquarters, wanting Harrigan's final report on Operation Paperclip, the code name for the scientist evacuation. Tell them we secured 125 of Germany's best scientific minds. Tell them we now possess advanced jet propulsion, rocket guidance systems, and metallurgical knowledge years beyond our current capabilities. Tell them the Soviets are conducting their own version with the scientists they captured. And tell them the next war will be won by whoever translates captured knowledge into operational capability fastest. Right now that's uncertain, but at least we're in the race. The lieutenant salutes and leaves. Fitzgerald watches the sunset over ruined Germany. What happens now, sir? Now we take everything we learned and prepare, because there will be another war. Maybe in 10 years, maybe 20, but it's coming. And when it comes, I want America to be the one with the Tigers and the jets and the rockets, not the one facing them. Harrigan walks back to his tent. INEAD technical manuals cover his desk, German engineering documents, blueprints for weapons that terrified him months ago. Now they're textbooks. He picks up a diagram of a jet engine, studies the airflow paths, the combustion chamber, the turbine design. Bull Harrigan, who built his career on overwhelming force, is learning to think like an innovator. It's uncomfortable, unfamiliar, but necessary. Because the future belongs to those who learn, not those who rest on past victories. Outside, the last trucks of Operation Paperclip roll toward the airfield, carrying crates of technology, carrying German scientists, carrying the future. And in his tent, by lamplight, a 58-year-old American general sits reading German engineering manuals, learning, adapting, preparing. The war in Europe is over, but Bull Harrigan's education has just begun. October 4th, 1957, Fort Bliss, Texas. Bull Harrigan, now 63 years old and wearing 3 stars, sits in his quarters watching television. The news anchor's voice carries barely concealed panic. The Soviet Union has successfully launched an artificial satellite into Earth orbit. The satellite, called Sputnik, transmits radio signals audible worldwide. This marks the first time a man-made object has achieved orbital velocity. Harrigan's jaw tightens. 12 years. 12 years since he evacuated Werner von Braun from Germany. 12 years of development. America has the German rocket team. America has the technology, and the Soviets beat them into space. The phone rings. Pentagon official, name irrelevant. Panic evident. General Harrigan, we need assessment. How did the Soviets win? We have von Braun. We have the V-2 technology. Harrigan's response is cold. Because we captured scientists and then didn't deploy them aggressively. We assumed possessing technology was the same as using it. We ran them through committees and clearances while the Soviets put their Germans to work immediately. We had a head start. We wasted it. He hangs up. The television continues. Sputnik weighs 184 pounds, orbits every 96 minutes. Its radio signal is a taunt. We can reach space. Can you? Harrigan walks to his window. Fort Bliss stretches below. Somewhere on base, von Braun is probably watching the same news, probably feeling vindicated after 3 years of warnings that the Soviets were closing the gap. But America didn't want to believe that defeated Germans who fled to the Soviet Union could match Germans who fled to America. The mathematics are simple and brutal. Both sides captured German scientists in 1945. Soviets put theirs to work immediately. Americans put theirs through bureaucracy. 12 years later, Soviets are in space. America is watching television. Harrigan thinks about the Ardennes, about watching tanks burn, about realizing all assumptions were wrong. This is that moment again. Larger, more consequential. This isn't about battlefield tactics. This is about which system dominates the future, and right now the answer is clear. Not America. The next morning, Harrigan drives to the rocket facility. Von Braun meets him, looking tired but vindicated. You saw, von Braun says, hard to miss. I warned them for 3 years. The Soviets were close. We needed to accelerate, but authorization requires committees. Funding requires congressional approval. Von Braun spreads blueprints. We can match this. The Redstone rocket is ready. We could orbit a satellite within 90 days with proper authorization. But by the time that happens, the Soviets will have launched 3 more. Harrigan studies the blueprints. 12 years learning to read engineering documents, learning to think systematically about innovation. What went wrong? We had you, we had your team, we had the technology. Von Braun sits heavily. General, you know what the Soviets did with their captured scientists? Same as us, presumably. No, opposite. You kept us together, gave us autonomy. The Soviets scattered theirs across programs, forced them to train Russian engineers, transferred knowledge rapidly. Within 5 years, Soviets didn't need German scientists. They had their own experts. But America? America kept us doing the work. Didn't develop your own rocket scientists fast enough. Von Braun taps the blueprints. You captured knowledge. They captured knowledge and replicated it, made it Soviet, not German. You learned from enemies. They learned faster. The words hit hard, because von Braun is correct. Operation Paperclip brought German scientists but didn't create American innovation. It imported German innovation. Soviets did something smarter, imported knowledge, then transferred it systematically. Within a generation, Soviet rockets became Soviet, not German. American rockets are still built by Germans. There's still time, von Braun says. Sputnik is propaganda, but the race isn't over. Can we win? If you do what you should have done in 1945. Stop treating us as the only people who can build rockets. Train American engineers. Transfer knowledge systematically. Make rocket science American. And launch soon. before Soviet advantage becomes insurmountable. Harrigan makes calls that afternoon, first to Pentagon. Argues for immediate funding for von Braun's satellite program. Uses language politicians understand. Soviet technological superiority threatens national security. Second to MIT and Caltech. Requests meetings about aerospace engineering programs. America needs to train rocket scientists in volume. Third to Colonel Robert Fitzgerald, now 67, working in the Pentagon. Bob, we're behind, way behind, my fault. Sir, I captured German technology in 1945. Treated it like a trophy instead of a textbook. We need knowledge transfer. Now, systematic, comprehensive. Over 6 months, transformation begins. Von Braun's team gets launch authorization. More importantly, universities recruit students into aerospace programs. The knowledge transfer finally begins. German scientists teaching American students not just how to build rockets, how to think about innovation. January 31, 1958. Explorer 1 reaches orbit. Von Braun's Redstone performs flawlessly. Not first, 4 months late, but a start. Harrigan watches from Cape Canaveral. The Redstone rises on flame. Beautiful, powerful, terrifying. Next to him, Fitzgerald says, "We did it. We're in the race." "We're in the race, Bob, but we're losing." And for the next decade, that's the story. Soviets launch first satellite, first animal in space, first human, first woman, first spacewalk. Every Soviet first is an American second. It's the Ardennes again. American capacity facing superior execution. Production versus precision. Except you can't win space races through attrition. Either your rocket works or it explodes. The humiliation is comprehensive and public. But something else happens. Something Harrigan recognizes. America is learning. By 1960, NASA exists. Thousands of American engineers working on rockets. Universities producing aerospace graduates by hundreds. Knowledge locked in German heads in 1945, now spreading across American institutions. Slow, painful, expensive, but happening. November 12, 1957, 5 weeks after Sputnik. Senate Armed Services Committee, Washington, D.C. Harrigan sits at a witness table, 3 stars catching camera lights. Senators arrange themselves like judges. Senator McCarthy leans into his microphone. "General Harrigan, you personally oversaw Operation Paperclip. You brought 125 German rocket scientists to America 12 years ago." "That's correct, Senator." "And last month the Soviet Union beat us into space, using German scientists they captured." The room goes silent. "How do you explain this failure, General?" Harrigan feels the weight of every decision since 1945. Every moral compromise, every Nazi scientist recruited, every time pragmatism trumped principle, all leading to this: public humiliation. Soviets winning with the same strategy he pioneered. "Senator, we captured the scientists but didn't deploy them aggressively. We processed them through security clearances, budget committees, approval chains. Soviets put their Germans to work immediately." "So you're admitting your failure?" "I'm admitting that possessing knowledge isn't the same as applying it. Soviets learned that lesson faster." McCarthy smiles, smells blood. "Perhaps we should have left Nazi scientists in Germany instead of giving them American jobs and American money." Harrigan leans forward. "Senator, if we'd done that, Soviets would have all the German rocket scientists, not half, and Sputnik would have launched 5 years ago. We didn't fail by recruiting German scientists. We failed by not listening to them aggressively enough, by treating knowledge transfer as optional instead of urgent." McCarthy tries another angle. "These men worked for Hitler, built weapons with slave labor. You gave them sanctuary. I gave them employment because the alternative was Soviet employment. And I'd rather have former Nazi scientists building American rockets than Soviet ones. That's the nature of strategic competition, Senator. You make terrible choices because worse choices are unacceptable." The hearing continues 3 more hours. Harrigan defends every decision. every compromise, every moral calculation. By the end, his career hangs by a thread, but von Braun, watching from Huntsville, makes a call to Pentagon that night. "We can beat Sputnik, but I need authorization now, not in 6 months, now." Authorization comes. Explorer 1 launches 90 days later. Harrigan retires from active duty in 1961 at 67. Offered corporate boards, consulting contracts, speaking tours, declines everything except one. NASA asks him to serve as advisor on systems integration, unofficial role. Mostly talking to young engineers about lessons from World War II, about adaptation, innovation, learning from enemies. He accepts because he wants to see this through, wants to watch America complete what Operation Paperclip started. May 25, 1961. President Kennedy announces America's goal: land a man on the moon before decade's end. It's audacious, insane. Soviets are years ahead. America hasn't even orbited a human yet, but Harrigan, watching the speech, recognizes the strategy. When facing superior German technology in the Ardennes, he didn't try matching them tank for tank. He changed the battlefield, flanked, adapted. Kennedy is doing the same. Soviets are winning every milestone in near-Earth orbit. So change the race. Make it about the moon. Brilliant if it works. John Glenn orbits Earth. First American spacewalk. Apollo 8 orbits the moon. Getting closer. Harrigan watches each launch. Watches American engineers solve problems that didn't exist a decade ago. Watches knowledge transfer complete. The rockets launching from Cape Canaveral aren't German anymore. They're American. Designed by American engineers who learned from German engineers who learned from earlier innovators. Knowledge flowing across continents and generations. July 16, 1969, Apollo 11 launch day. Harrigan, 75 years old, stands at Cape Canaveral. Next to him is Fitzgerald, 67, retired, invited as Harrigan's guest. The Saturn V is massive, 363 feet tall, 6 million pounds at liftoff, most powerful machine ever built, designed by Wernher von Braun, the German scientist who built V-2 rockets that killed British civilians, who used slave labor, who Harrigan evacuated 24 years ago in a decision that still haunts him. That man designed the rocket about to send Americans to the moon. "What are you thinking, Bull?" Fitzgerald asks. Harrigan is quiet, then, "I'm thinking about the Ardennes, about watching tanks burn, about meeting German technology and realizing everything I knew was obsolete. I'm thinking about Klaus Weber and Gunther Schmidt, German soldiers who taught me that innovation matters more than production. I'm thinking about capturing Wernher von Braun, about moral compromise, working with a man whose hands were stained with blood because alternatives were worse. And I'm thinking about cycles, how knowledge transfers across continents and centuries, how each generation learns from the previous, how today's victor becomes tomorrow's teacher." He gestures to the Saturn V. That rocket represents 24 years of knowledge transfer. German innovation learned by American engineers, adapted, improved, made better. It's an old pattern, different players, different technologies, same lesson. What lesson? That winning isn't about who invents first. It's about who learns fastest, who adapts most completely, who has humility to learn from enemies instead of just defeating them. The countdown begins. 10, 9, 8. Harrigan watches the rocket, thinks about all the decisions that led here. Captured Tiger in Belgium, interrogation of engineers, moral compromise of Paperclip, humiliation of Sputnik, long, painful knowledge transfer. 5, 4, 3. History is full of cycles, Harrigan says. Inventions, innovations. One civilization creates something revolutionary, then stops improving it, gets complacent. Others learn that innovation, adapt it, improve it, eventually surpass the originators. 2, 1. The pattern repeats endlessly. The winners aren't the inventors. They're the ones who never stop learning. Ignition. The Saturn V erupts in fire and thunder. Sound hammers into Harrigan's chest like artillery. The rocket rises, slowly, then faster, climbing on flame that lights up Florida. Harrigan watches it arc into the sky, watches it disappear into blue. 3 American astronauts aboard, heading to the moon, launched by a rocket designed by a German, using knowledge that originated in earlier innovations, adapted by many nations, spread by many hands, learned by many generations, each taking what came before. Learning, improving, building. We're going to make it, Fitzgerald says. We're going to beat the Soviets to the moon. Harrigan nods. Yes, because we learned fast enough. Finally. But the lesson isn't about beating Soviets. The lesson is about never stopping. Never assuming victory is permanent. Never becoming complacent. Because someone, somewhere, is always learning from you, preparing to surpass you. The cycle continues. They watch until the Saturn V is gone, just a contrail, a white line pointing toward space, toward the moon, toward the future. 4 days later, July 20th, 1969, Apollo 11 landing day. Harrigan watches from his home in Texas, alone, television on, 75 years of memories weighing heavy. Armstrong's voice crackles. The Eagle has landed, humanity's first landing on another world, culmination of everything that started when Harrigan captured von Braun in a German farmhouse. The phone rings. General Harrigan, this is Neil Armstrong. I'm calling from the moon. Harrigan's hand shakes, holding the receiver. Astronaut Armstrong, congratulations. Sir, Mission Control told me you were instrumental in Operation Paperclip, that you brought the scientists who built this rocket to America. I wanted to thank you. Harrigan closes his eyes. 24 years of moral compromise, working with men who had blood on their hands, choosing victory over purity, losing sleep over decisions that saved lives by costing souls. Don't thank me, son. Thank the men who taught me that being strong isn't enough. You have to be smart. Sir, in 1944 I watched my tanks burn because the enemy had better technology. I had 2 choices, retreat into what I knew or learn from what was killing me. I chose to learn, even when it meant working with people I despised, even when it meant compromising principles I thought were absolute. And now you're standing on the moon because of that choice. Armstrong is quiet. Then, was it worth it, General? Harrigan looks at the television, at the grainy image of the American flag on lunar soil. Ask me in 50 years. Ask when we know whether America kept learning or got comfortable, whether we stayed hungry or got satisfied with one victory. Because the real test isn't whether we won the space race. It's whether we remember that winning is temporary, that leads are fragile, that today's victory is tomorrow's history lesson. If we remember that, then yes, every compromise was worth it. If we forget, we'll become like those who invent brilliantly but stop improving, and someone else will learn from us, surpass us, and use our own innovations against us. Sir, I promise you, my generation won't forget. Harrigan smiles, first genuine smile since Sputnik. See that you don't, son, see that you don't. He hangs up. Outside, the Texas night is clear, the moon bright. And for the first time in 12 years, since Sputnik shattered American confidence, Bull Harrigan feels something close to peace, not because America won, but because a young astronaut on the moon understood the lesson, understood this isn't the end. It's one victory in an endless cycle, one step in an infinite race against complacency. Harrigan walks outside, looks up at the moon, at 2 Americans exploring another world. And he thinks about a Belgian forest in December 1944, about tiger tanks in fog, about watching men die because he didn't know enough, about choosing to learn instead of retreat. That choice, made in frozen hell by a terrified general, led to this. 2 men on the moon, America winning the space race, democracy proving it can match innovation with dictatorship. But more than that, it proved something deeper, The winners aren't those who never fail. They're those who learn from failure, who adapt from defeat, who have humility to learn from enemies. Harrigan raises his glass. To the Tiger tanks that taught him humility, to the German scientists who taught him innovation, to the endless cycle of invention, adaptation, and evolution, to the understanding that the race never ends, that complacency kills, that learning is survival. He drinks. Above, the moon shines bright, Americans walking on its surface, the future written in stars. And Bull Harrigan, 75 years old, teacher of generals, student of war, understands his legacy. He didn't invent victory. He learned it from people trying to kill him, and passed that lesson forward. The rest is up to them. In need, the television shows Armstrong planting the American flag, a moment of triumph. But Harrigan knows the truth. This isn't the end of the race. It's the end of one lap. Somewhere, someone is watching this, learning from it, planning to surpass it. The cycle continues, always has, always will. And the only way to survive is never stopping, never resting, never assuming today's victory guarantees tomorrow's dominance. Because that's when complacency kills. That's when the student becomes the teacher. That's when the cycle turns again. Harrigan walks back inside, turns off the television, sits in darkness, thinking about choices made in frozen forests, about compromises made in ruined farmhouses, about knowledge transferred across decades and continents, about the lesson that matters more than any victory. The winners aren't the inventors. They're the ones who learn fastest, who adapt most completely, who understand that every advantage is temporary, and who never, ever stop evolving. In the darkness, Bull Harrigan smiles, not because America won the space race, but because a new generation heard the lesson, understood it, took it to heart. They'll face their own tigers, their own moments when everything they know becomes obsolete. And when that moment comes, maybe they'll remember an old general who watched his tanks burn, who had humility to learn from his enemies, who understood that survival means constant adaptation, and who helped America win not by being strongest, but by being the fastest learner. The cycle continues. Bull Harrigan, at 75, has made his contribution. He taught a generation how to learn from fire. What they do with that lesson is up to them. Outside, the Texas night holds the moon, where two Americans stand, looking back at Earth, standing on knowledge that crossed continents and centuries, standing on the shoulders of giants who learned from giants, the infinite chain of human innovation. And somewhere in darkness, the next link is being forged by someone learning from us, right now. The cycle continues, as it always has, as it always will. Bull Harrigan closes his eyes and sleeps the sleep of a man who understands his place in history. Not a hero, not a villain, just a student who learned his lesson well and passed it on.